insights of the new techade. I would invite each speaker to come up for about 15 minutes and share their experiences, their insights on this. But firstly, a warm welcome. If we could please put our hands together for our esteemed guests today. Thank you. The first guest that I'd like to invite on stage is Mats Grandred. He is the Director General of GSMA and a member of its board. He leads GSMA in supporting its global membership. He's also advanced the organization's work in one of the biggest social challenges, where the mobile industry has become the first sector as part of the United Nations Sustainable Development Program, where we're looking to build a roadmap to achieve net zero, as well as ensure mobile coverage to 95% of the world's population. Mats, I invite you on stage. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, look at this. Are you ready? Are you ready? Well, good. It is just so fantastically exciting to be here today on this opening day of IMC with a lot of old friends and new friends and talking about the future of the industry. Let's see. I will start with this picture. Anyone interested in cricket? Yeah, well, I'm not a big cricket fan. Sweden is not big on cricket, but it's still quite fascinating. Now, cricket has a lot in common with business. You need to have a strong team, you need to work together as a team, and you need to have a good strategy to win. Isn't that right? But the one thing you really need is a good culture. And culture sets this industry, the telecom industry, aside from so many other industries. And I'll come back to that. But before I continue, last week we all got the news that Mr. Ratan Tata passed away. And for me, I had the pleasure of meeting him a couple of times. And I must say, he made quite an impact on me and the way that I conduct my leadership. He was very knowledgeable, very humble, always thinking about the future and trying to figure out what is the best way of connecting technology into people's hands. So he, for me, symbolizes culture in a fantastic way. He's a great loss to India and a great loss to the world. So thank you, Mr. Tata. You rest in peace. Mobile industry is only 50 years old. The first cellular phone call was made in 1973 in New York. Marty Cooper is his name. He is still around. He came to Barcelona last year. And in 50 short years, we have gone from one SIM card, one unique connection, to 5.6 billion connections. That's 2/3 of everyone on this planet. Now, that is a culture that is worth mentioning. You know, it doesn't really happen by itself. It really takes a lot of conscious effort. And I would argue that the mobile industry has one of the strongest and most well thought through cultures in the world of businesses. Now, we all know that in these 50 years, and today even more so, when listening to Prime Minister Modi, on the emphasis of the next technology, how big that is. Society is really built on technology, built on connectivity. Not only me connecting to my friend in Mumbai, but the society, businesses are living on connectivity. So for us to continue to deliver good connectivity, to continue to be this bearer of culture, we need to focus and we need to stay true to our goal. So I have developed a goal, which you should remember if nothing else. And it's really 4 words. The first one is G, which is growth. The second is open gateway. The third is aligning on key issues. And the fourth one is leaving no one behind. And Prime Minister Modi and the other chairmen touched upon that quite frequently in their speeches, and I will do the same. So let's start with growth. Well, so how is India doing when it comes to 5G? India is doing absolutely phenomenal. It is, the rollout of 5G is literally unmatched. Today there is some 135 million 5G subscription in India, and by 2030 it will be 640 million 5G subscription. Literally 50% of every Indian will be on a 5G connection. Absolutely amazing. And today it's 134. And you can see the growth rate here. It's only Latin America that is sort of on par with India, and that's a whole continent. So well done on that. And I know the rollout is increasing and doing so well. Now, the issue with this is maybe this, that the number of gigabytes that a smartphone is downloading is also unmatched. And India here is leading the pack, as you can see. Today we have, or India has some 29 gigabits per month that we download. And that will grow to 68 gigabytes per month in 2030. So it is really a 3-time or so increase, maybe not quite 2.5 times. So we know that annually data consumption increases with 50%. So 50% every year are we consuming more and more data. We also know that that data is being produced, if you would like, by 80%. 80% of that data is being produced by very, very few players. So if you want to be a bit sharp, you can say, well, the operators, Geo, Reliance, Airtel, and Vodafone Idea, they're not building the networks for the many. They're building it for the few. They're building it for these 4 or 5 companies that constitute 80% of the data. Now, this is maybe not fair. We need to think about the amount of money that mobile operators need to push into their networks. And here in Asia Pacific, from now to 2030, we will require another $270 billion into our networks. And quite frankly, we need to be careful of not starving this industry and strangulating it with all this data that is being consumed. It's good in one aspect, and it's needed in one aspect, but we also need enough money to build out the capacity, build out the usage, build out new features. So bear that in mind. And we are doing our fair share, our fair bit, but we believe others can continue to do that as well. All right, so let's move on to the second topic, which is, we did G, we're now doing O in gold, so that is Open Gateway. Now this is something that I'm really, really excited about. We launched something called Open Gateway some 18 months ago. And what is Open Gateway? Well, Open Gateway is network APIs, where we are saying that, you know what? We can use our 5G networks to so much more capabilities if we just open up and ask developers to come in and use our network for the benefit of industries and me as a consumer. And that is what Open Gateway is doing. So in 18 short months, we have now conquered, if you would like, 74% of all mobile connections in the world. So this is something that is absolutely happening. I think you can say Open Gateway is very similar to that of roaming. You know, the more that are part of it, the more exciting it will be. Imagine an airplane landing here in Delhi. It's from Airbus, and the amount of data that is being transmitted when the plane lands is tremendous. The same airplane takes off and goes back and fly back to Paris, for instance. And another set of data needs to be downloaded. Now, if you are Airbus, you don't want to have one API, one interface in Delhi and a relationship with the 3 operators here, and another interface in France with the operators there. You want to have the same interface. And that is what Open Gateway is. And that's why it becomes exciting when you have roaming as an analogy globally. So what are we doing? Well, we have 3 different approaches in go-to-market. The first one is accelerating industry-led operations adoption, and that is basically each and every operator going out individually to MasterCard, to Airbus, or to Toyota, or whoever it might be. That's one way. That's good, as it creates speed, it gives good margin for operators, and it gives good agility. But it is a bit clunky because you need to do a lot of those sales calls. The second one, unlock scaled supply, is where you have an intermediate in between. You could have Ericsson's Vonage, for instance, or you could have Infobip, or you could have one of the hyperscalers, AWS or Google or someone else, helping you collecting all the information from operators and then turning around and selling it to businesses. That's maybe better to create scale. There will be a little bit loss of margins possibly. And the third thing, which I'm really excited about, is that we're turning the table completely around with something called IMC, Advanced Market Commitment, where we are going out to industries and getting them to go together and ask them, what is your problem? And then to take that problem, turning it around and going into our operators and making sure that we can deliver a solution to their problem. So this is really, really exciting and something that we believe has a huge potential. For the operator community, this has a potential of roughly $300 billion US. So this can become a game changer if we do this right. Very exciting. Okay, so let's move on to Align. And Align, I have took the liberty to do three things: AI, environment, and spectrum. So let's start with AI. AI is here and now. We all know that. It's a lot to talk about AI. But we need to remember that we only have one shot at it. We need to respect the complexity of AI, and that is sort of this schematic graph here, that we are at the inflection point. We see a bright future of AI, but we need to treat AI with huge amount of respect. We need to make sure that we have the ethics in place and the dialects, etc., with AI. But it's really encouraging to see what's happening here with Airtel's collaboration with Google Cloud and others. So this is certainly happening, and I believe India can be definitely in the forefront here. Innovation is happening everywhere. What are we doing from a GSMA perspective? Well, we have several initiatives. The first initiative is a responsible AI roadmap, and that is to make sure that the ethics is well taken care of. It's a maturity roadmap, so please use that. You can download it from our app. And we have IBM that we're working closely with on our AI Foundry, and we also have the GTI, which is CJK, or China, Japan, and Korea activity. But please do download our app and get all these free content and all these free guidelines on how to use AI. The next one is environment. And you might remember that the mobile industry had taken a pledge, as the moderator said, we were the first industry to commit to the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goal. And for those who remember, SDG number 13 is climate. So we took a pledge that by 2030, we will be net zero. No one believed that that would be achievable, but this is global data. In 4 years, we have seen an increase of data consumption with 120% globally, 120% up. We see 7% more subscribers, and we also see a 6% reduction in CO2. So what we are saying, we're actually delivering on. This, of course, needs to be accelerated, but still it is a very, very good start. Now, India needs to pick up pace here. We see that India has a renewable share of roughly only 10% when it comes to energy production. But if you say fossil freedom, well, it's 40% or so. So India has an opportunity here to really step up and make sure to use only green energy, green electrons. So please put those requirements on your energy suppliers, because that's where it comes from. The green electrons or the dirty electrons, and we only want green electrons, fossil-free or renewable, one of the two. Yeah, that's what I'm saying on this. Solar is in abundance in India. Okay, so then the third one is spectrum. Now, spectrum, we can't smell, we can't touch, and we can't see it, but still, it is the lifeline and the blood of the mobile operator. It is just so important. And you should know that we are in the birthplace of Sir Jagdish Chopra Bose, who was here in India 130 years ago. He actually did a scientific way of measuring and being able to capture radio waves. So this is really the birthplace of electromagnetic fields. It's quite fascinating. Now, 130 years on, we are having world radio conferences every now and then. We had one last year where we align on spectrum globally. And, you know, a lot of things are really important, but that event is really, really important. So we have the same spectrum globally. And what is our challenges right now? Well, it is 6 gigahertz. We need to align on 6 gigahertz. We need to help the government to have a roadmap on 6 gigahertz. We need to have government to have a time plan for 6 gigahertz. If, as Mr. Prime Minister Modi said this morning, India has an ambition to be the leader in the next Release 21, the next generation of mobile technology, 6 gigahertz is absolutely a must. Absolutely a must. So that's spectrum. And my last L in GOAL is leave no one behind. Now this is really, really important. If you remember one thing from what I'm saying, please do remember this, because there's so much misunderstanding of leaving no one behind. Take a look at this graph, and I will let you read it for 2 seconds. You have the gray bar, which is connected. That is people that are connected to a mobile broadband network. I'm not talking 2G, I'm talking 3G, 4G, or 5G. And in India, you can see 53% of the population are connected to a mobile broadband. That's fantastic. You see 46% in India. It's called the coverage gap. And the coverage gap is you live beneath a mobile broadband coverage, but you do not connect of some reason. You do not connect to the mobile broadband network. So that's 46%. And then in India, you have 1%, which is the coverage gap. And the coverage gap is where there is no network at all. There is no possibility for me to connect, even if I wanted to. So if I go, so that's the coverage gap, we have the usage gap, and we have connected. So if I start with the 1%, the coverage gap. Now, what technology do you think would suit the coverage gap well? Well, we can, of course, build more base stations, but it's pretty hefty as it is. And normally, these are people living far away or in maritime environment. Well, satellite is perfect. So that satellites, when you hear the word satellite, remember, that is the 1% in India. 1% of people can be helped by satellite. We have 46%, which is the coverage gap, which are people living beneath a mobile broadband coverage, but they do not connect. That has nothing to do with technology. It has all to do with these 5 things. And we know exactly what it is. It is affordability of a handset. It is digital skills. I might have money, but I don't know how this thing works. Or I have money, I know how it works, but there's just nothing there for me. And I'm tired of seeing Bollywood movies. I want to do something more productive. That's relevant content. And then access is, of course, access. And then safety and security. And that's where the AI maturity roadmap comes in. We cannot afford to let anyone feel scared of internet. We need to come up with ideas, solutions of helping people to feel safe on internet. So these are the reasons why people, the 46% in the coverage gap, are not connecting. So if we can help ourselves, and this is not a mobile operator solely issue, this is government, it is OTT, it is all other service providers, all other industries really need to push the coverage gap to make sure that we bridge it with these 4, 5 topics. It's very simple, yet extraordinarily complicated. Okay, so there you have it. That is my goal for the industry and for me personally. Growth, open gateway, align, and leave no one behind. And if I would just leave you with this cricket picture, I believe that we have the best strategy. I believe we have the best vision. I believe we have the best team. And I've been around this industry for many, many years, for many decades. And we also have what is really important, the best culture. Thank you very much.
Maths. Personally, I think the fact where you said that it's 50 years since our first SIM card and today it's 2.3 billion, I think that was very interesting. And I know both the front row as well as the back row took a photo of the fact that in 50%, there's going to be a 50% data consumption leap from where we're today up to 2030. So thank you so much, Maths. A big round of applause for Maths, please. Thank you. I would like to now invite on stage Andres Vicente. He is the head of market for Southeast Asia, Oceania, and India at Ericsson. Andreas, everyone, a warm welcome, please.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. To be honest, it's the first time I'm in the Mobile Indian Congress, and it's impressive. I've been many, many times in Europe, and I think that is quite inspirational, the story that you are building. I'm a Spanish citizen, and I would love that my country will have the network that you have built. And I do believe in the power of 5G in order to transform the world, and I do believe in the power of 5G in order to keep India ahead of the game. So I'm going to try to give you some data points and some information of why do I believe that this is going on and this will happen. First of all, 5G is mainstream. So there is 300 operators that have launched commercially 5G across the world. That is bringing 1.9 billion connections into this type of technology, and it's allowing to untap the usage of the network. India is leading in this game, and the average consumption per user is 29 gigabytes per month, which is extremely impressive. That represents more or less 2 hours more of high video definition per user than the average in the world. 25% of the mobile data traffic is already in 5G. So 5G is a tremendous reality that is taking over faster than any other mobile generation. Another big data point is that today India has clearly emerged as a front runner of 5G. In only 22 months, has been able to roll out 500 million base stations, providing coverage for more than 90% of the population. There are many recipes for this success, but one of them is the commitment of the Indian government in order to deploy digital infrastructure. The other one is effective spectrum allocation, which is critical. But the other one is the significant investment done by the operators. And I think that that is powerful and very relevant. This will bring to the Indian economy around $500 billion incremental revenues in 2040, which is quite impressive. And the reason behind that is that 5G will become the backbone of our society. Everything will be interconnected with 5G because all the strategic industries will be connected to 5G. Even if we talk about consumers with new appealing use cases, it doesn't matter if it's telemedicine, healthcare, cloud gaming, or if we're talking about digital inclusion, take into account that something like fixed wireless access is ramping up in this market. You already have 6 million customers in India. The projection is that India will reach 100 million customers on fixed wireless access by 2030, and that is impressive because it will allow all the households within the country in order to have a powerful connection to any type of device. And 5G will not contribute only on connecting people, but connecting everything. It will connect wearables, it will connect vehicles, it will connect robots. It will connect also everything that needs to be protected, like our environmental areas, because it does allow a capacity that multiplied by 10 to 4G with 30% less energy consumption, which is heavily impressive. So I think that it's super important that we keep pushing into this direction. Because if I can complement that, 5G will change completely the enterprise landscape. It has the potential to add 17 billion US dollars to the Indian economy and to the operators' revenue by transforming key industries, especially manufacturing, utilities, energy production. And the reason is that provides the necessary range, bandwidth, and low latency in order to make any of those industries more efficient. I have provided some examples, but it's very obvious that can reduce the downtime of any operation because it's much more reliable and it's much capable in order to do data analytics on real time and in order to leverage artificial intelligence. If those industries push for the combination of artificial intelligence and cloud computing, the gain on efficiency will be massive. And there is no industry that can give themselves the opportunity of not analyzing and get into this space really, really quickly. Backwards, see that the speed of connection has multiplied by 10 every 10 years. And in the last 30 years, that means that it has multiplied by 1 million. This is allowing to connect everything that can be connected, and this is allowing to produce more use cases, different ones. What 5G is bringing is a different type of connectivity, much lower latency, much higher bandwidth, with better TCO, lower energy consumption. This is building up into networks that are open and programmable, software-driven. This is the first step into the 6G generation. I'm extremely happy that India wants to lead that journey, and we will be close to them, because it's a very, very important journey. I know that this picture looks complex, but I will try to simplify it, because in a way, it's also aligned quite well with what Mats was sharing. And basically, is the networks are transforming into something that is physical to something that is software-driven. And they are moving from TBT point from the end customer to being an open and programmable network that will be accessible for many different actors at the same time. Networks are becoming platforms, and those platforms are becoming part of a broader ecosystem. What I'm trying to illustrate within this picture is that you have a layer of infrastructure, cloud infrastructure at the bottom, usually dominated at global level by the big hyperscalers, people like Google, Amazon, etc. Then you have on the middle the network, but those networks are new networks, and 5Gs are open and programmable. And then you have on top of that the service layer. And the service layer is dominated by the app developers community. The service that they produce, they are consumed through different type of devices. Some of them are mobile phones. Those are the most well-known. But there are many others. There are gaming machines. There are robots. There are cars. There will be many vehicles like drones. So there will be many devices consuming whatever application is created. This ecosystem is a great opportunity for this country. This ecosystem is going to open and untap a lot of value. And the reason behind that is that the new networks, the 5G network, have the capabilities to expose all the functionalities. And those networks has a lot of functionalities. Have functionalities related with billing, has functionalities related with location, has functionalities related with quality of usage, have functionalities related with fraud prevention. So it's a whole world of new opportunities. And if the operators are able to cooperate among them and open this world of opportunities to the app community developers, we will see a new generation of services. We will see a new generation of services addressing every industry and increasing the customer experience, improving also the P&L of most of those industries. We have created a joint venture with some of the leading operators in the world. That includes in India, Jio and Bharti, Airtel. and also includes some of the big operators in Europe, Vodafone, Telefonica, Orange, T-Mobile, all the players in the US, all the network players in the US, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, America Mobile in Latin America, and Telstra and Syntel in Southeast Asia. That is opening a window of opportunity in order to address more than 3 billion consumers by a community of developers that is more than 10 million developers. Because it's bringing together Bonats and it's bringing together also Google Cloud with the community of developers in order to use this new type of services. This is a lifetime opportunity in order to bring the Indian ecosystem into this platform. This platform is guaranteeing global scale, is open to any telco in the world, because what we try to do with it is to reach global scale as soon as possible and to leverage the new functionalities of 5G. And I want to give you an example. If I have a bank, probably I'm serving some million customers in India, maybe 10, 12 million customers, maybe 100 million customers. Only a small portion of those customers will do online training on shares, maybe 1%. Maybe 1% will buy and sell shares through my application on the bank side. It's completely recommendable that I treat those customers differently. You know what is the most sensible thing when you're trying to trade on the stock market? Is to do it at the right time. Is to do it without any delay. So if you know that something is going to happen, put your bet. Either sell or buy, but put your bet. Latency is critical in order to do that. Security is critical in order to do that. If I will be that bank, I will pay my operator in order to secure low latency and fraud prevention for this 1% that probably represent more than 10% of the value of the day-to-day activities in the bank. This is the type of applications, this is the type of use cases that we need to drive in every industry. It doesn't matter if it's power distribution, water distribution, autonomous vehicles, financial services, retail. There will be hundreds of thousands of use cases. And that will be only gotten if this ecosystem is working perfectly. And those revenues will flow to the telco industry only if the telco industry is able to cooperate together. And I think that is critical that we are able to do it. Last but not least, I want to dedicate only 3 minutes to my company. We are a trusted partner in this ecosystem, in the telco industry, but we are a trusted partner in India as well. We have been in the country since 1903, and we have been producing and manufacturing in India since 1994. We have 22,600 employees in this country, and almost 10% of them are dedicated to R&D. We are creating a lot of value here, in Chennai, in Bangalore, in Guwahati. And we are completely committed to keep on doing it. And we are bringing some of the key initiatives for our future in order to be developed here. We only have 3 global accelerators of artificial intelligence in the world. One is in Sweden, our home country, the other one is the US, and the other one is in India, it's in Bangalore. When we are talking about creating a new ecosystem for app developers, we are setting up on R&D here in India. So we are committed not only to the Make in India policy, but we are also innovating in India, and we are also a trustable partner empowering digital transformation in India. Thank you very much.
I think one of the points that you said, that 5G is the connector of people, the connector of the planet, and connector of robotics as well, irrespective of industries, and it sort of just layers on having a great customer experience that you put out there. So thank you once again, Andres, for that talk. I'd like to next welcome on stage Mr. Sharat Sinha, the CEO of Airtel Business. Please put your hands together.
Really glad to be here at India Mobile Congress talking about key insights for the new techade. Future is always hard to predict, but I'll give it a try. Uh, in order to understand where the technological trends are moving, one has to look at how past technologies have evolved. Today we are living in the world of 5G and artificial intelligence, and it's pretty much part of our lives. So I'm going to give you a few examples of where the confluence of the two is making change in terms of how we live, how we work, and how we play. I was fortunate enough to start 30 years ago, and I was part of the organization that started internet services in India. And over the years, the technology evolved, and it took some time for people to really understand how it is making changes in everybody's life. As one of the futurists said, we overestimate the impact of a new technology in short run and underestimate its impact in longer run. And same has been the case for many technologies. And typically, just the appearance of a technology like artificial intelligence or 5G would not tell you how transformational it is going to be. For example, first 3G network at a global level, commercial network was rolled out in 2001 with NTT Docomo. But the first really successful commercial smartphone appeared only in 2007 and 8 timeframe. And one of the reasons was that the supporting technologies, particularly development of semiconductor technologies that made mobile devices possible, or the screen-related technology, or frankly, even the battery technology did not evolve enough. And therefore, 3G took good 6-7 years for the really killer consumer application or consumer device to happen, which has really transformed our lives. How long would it take for you if you lost your smartphone to realize that you lost it? Probably fairly quickly you'll know your device is lost. If I asked you the same question in 2000s, probably you'll realize in a day because you were not using it as often. And basically in 1990s, you may not realize because it did not exist everywhere. So the point is, any transformative technology becomes a transformative technology when it changes how you live, how you actually work, and how you play, basically how you entertain yourself. And picking a few examples of today, I've returned back to India after 24 years. And quick commerce is very common here. People expect things to be delivered in 10 minutes time. But have you ever wondered how these companies predict exactly what you need, how they place their warehouses so that they're delivered to you within 10 minutes of time? It uses very sophisticated machine learning, artificial intelligence models, not just in predicting what you need, but also in the planning of warehouses and inventory in those places. And this is where actually mobile wireless, unless you have those applications on those devices, and artificial intelligence actually come together to deliver those services. And it is indeed transforming lives because most of the people expect these things to be delivered within 10 minutes. When it comes to work, once again, I would say people have been asking, since the time of 5G, what is the killer application? But killer applications are now actually evolving. We have recently done a POC for a private 5G network where we are making connected mobile robots possible. And it uses combination of edge computing, it uses artificial intelligence, and definitely uses 5G technology, the ultra reliable, low latency communication, which is possible only with 5G to make it happen. We also recently did a POC trial of AI-powered colonoscopy for early detection of cancer, remote colonoscopy, which is going to basically transform healthcare. And many of these applications are slowly evolving. Entertainment-wise, I don't think I have to explain much, but if you look at major OTT players, if you look at Spotify, Netflix, or YouTube, the way they do personalized content is basically with the use of artificial intelligence. And fundamentally, apart from how these confluence of technologies make our lives, our work, or how we entertain ourselves change, it is also making our life safer. In fact, very recently, Airtel launched industry's first AI-powered, network-enabled spam protection solution, which had been in need of the industry for a very long time. But one has to realize that for that to happen, You need a very robust and efficient network which has right kind of data and content which can be enabled to make that spam protection possible. Then comes the protection of AI itself, and you need obviously cybersecurity capabilities which go along with the combination of 5G, and it is making use of these days co-pilots, etc., to make sure that AI itself is safe, because data poisoning is a reality. Most of the large language models would not be successful if the data itself was corrupted. So that's another aspect becomes very, very critical. So as you can see, 5G, artificial intelligence, most of these technologies, when they come together, they become transformative. And I'll repeat, estimate the impact of a technology in short run, but in longer run, we underestimate it, and therefore, as it unfolds, you're going to see more and more of these technologies. In fact, just looking at what Matt's presented, there are quite a few things we are doing to address some of those gaps. AI-powered spam protection is something I mentioned. You're welcome to come and see in Airtel Arena. But even the 1% gap that he talked about, we are also offering LEO-GEO services to make sure that that 1% is also covered within India so that we have broad coverage. Inclusive growth is critical. And at Airtel, we are very proud to be at the forefront of these technologies to provide foundation where Digital India thrives. As a country, hopefully, we'll redefine what is possible. So you're all welcome to join the Airtel Arena and see the confluence of technologies, which is becoming transformational as we impact our lives, work, and how we play. Thank you.
Hearts skipped a beat when Sharad said, if you lost your cell phone today or your smartphone today. But agree to the fact that the journey becomes so much more transformative when it's a confluence of those technologies. So thank you for that. I'd like to next welcome on stage Mr. Alex Rogers. Alex is the president of Qualcomm Technology Licensing and the Global Affairs of Qualcomm Incorporated. Warm welcome to Alex, please.
So this is my fifth IMC. Very happy to be here. Today I'd like to discuss some progress. I'll show some things that other folks have shown, but I'll get through it quickly. Some challenges and some opportunities. Progress, it's no surprise to this audience that 5G has continued relentless global growth. 300 operators have launched 5G services, and at least 60 of them standalone 5G. And there are more than 2 billion 5G-enabled smartphones that have shipped globally, including, I heard 134 million earlier, but I have 150 million on my statistics. And the product ecosystem is very robust. 1,900 5G devices worldwide. 200 CPs are available in the market. And the ecosystem is expanding widely to a number of different use cases. So Qualcomm is partnering with entrepreneurs to develop 5G use cases, including modules for IoT, chipsets to make 5G smartphones at a sub-$100 price point, high performance, low power AI PCs with 5G connectivity. And the ecosystem is supportive of many startups providing training, tech training, innovation labs, IP training, go-to-market assistance. And these startups are creating now augmented and alternate and virtual reality applications, autonomous vehicles, and a variety of different innovation that use 5G capability. Working hard on the 5G 100 case use labs program and promoting remote science education and 5G enabled drones. Many of these applications are available in our booth. So what you've seen so far is that India obviously has the second largest smartphone market, and India now has become a smartphone manufacturing base, very significant. And the amount of data that's being consumed has risen dramatically, and the costs have dropped dramatically for every bit. And Indian consumers lead the world in 5G data traffic. And so what has happened is we have tremendous data traffic driven by video, sports, teleworking, cloud access, teleeducation, social media, obviously, and even gaming. But the demand for mobile broadband is now going to be enhanced or further burdened by AI use cases. And this is where it starts to get interesting. So there's the problem of power. There's a power bottleneck. Since OpenAI released ChatGPT 2 years ago, there's been a massive demand for data center build-out. And the race is on to build more capacity and to provide more power to enable the data center. And the estimated scale of demand for power varies widely. AI processing in the data center could go from currently 5 to 10% of the power being used in the data center to AI processing consuming roughly 50% of data center use cases by 2035. Tens of gigawatts of additional power will be necessary to meet the projected data center build-out. There's an estimate that by 2030, AI will account for 3.5% of worldwide electricity consumption. So the data center is enormously power hungry. A ChatGPT query is 10x more power consuming than a comparable Google search request. So several problems arise from this expected power demand. The first problem that's going to arise if we're going to meet this AI wave is, well, where's the power going to come from? How's it going to be generated? And so in the US, you hear the hyperscalers, the news being reported that they're going to reactivate decommissioned nuclear power plants, or that cloud providers are going to build and make active small modular nuclear reactors. And that is a very difficult thing to do. And the timelines associated with that are very long. In addition, how are we going to enable the transmission demands? If you are able to generate the power, how is the grid going to support the transmission of that power to data centers that are going to consume all of that power? How are we going to enable the cooling? How are we going to handle this in the timeframes that are being talked about? How are we going to maintain sustainable green energy goals? So power consumption in the data center is a problem that has to be solved from every angle. And if we don't solve it from every angle, the burden that's going to be placed on networks, in addition to the traffic burdens that already exist, and the cost, that is the energy costs of running networks that already exist, the burdens are going to be enormous. One dimension of the solution is to shift significant AI workloads from the data center to the edge. We can train smaller models on the edge and enable inference on the edge. Edge devices, phones, PCs, vehicles, and enterprise on-prem servers can handle significant workloads with much smaller models. Not everything has to go to the cloud for processing on massive AI models. And even small battery-powered devices, handhelds and PCs, can run inference entirely on device without even being connected to a network. As well, hybrid architectures can access data centers as needed, taking advantage of the strengths of both cloud and edge AI processing, while decreasing the significant burdens on a network for what will come when we have to do additional AI computation. Edge AI, including entirely on-device AI, is possible in part because of the increasing quality of small AI models. The latest Llama 3 8 billion parameter model matches the performance level of ChatGPT 3.5. And this enables superb Gen AI quality running directly on devices, even if those devices are not connected to a network. So the opportunities for real and significant cost savings in infrastructure build out and power consumption are very, very significant. Power efficient computing for AI on the edge is already here. Mobile devices were developed over decades to maximize performance per watt. With powerful, smaller AI models trained for use on the edge, many power-efficient use cases are possible. 10 billion parameters can be enabled on a smartphone. 30 billion parameters can be enabled on a PC. 100 billion parameters can be enabled on a vehicle. And Qualcomm has already enabled these on-device AI capabilities in commercially available products. One particularly important use case is already here, and that is edge AI for industrial applications. The opportunities for practical uses of AI on the edge in industrial settings are virtually unlimited. Data sets can be trained locally, privately, and securely, and inference tasks can be done locally as well. So just by way of example, in an oil facility, even disconnected from a data center, handhelds with AI-enabled tech manuals and specs create efficiency for workers in the field. AI-enabled drones can conduct inspections and actually learn to continuously conduct them better and better. Camera feeds that are completely unstructured can be trained to enable intelligent, efficient security and safety functions. And finally, AI sensors for mechanical operations can maintain operations at increased levels of efficiency and safety. And this can be accomplished right now independent of the data center without waiting for the massive infrastructure build out that will be required to realize what's being talked about for AI in the data centers. Then finally, sovereign AI matters. When on-device AI agent form the user interface between the consumer and the digital world, they will occupy a critical role. AI agents will sit between the human and the machine and act as the interface between the human and the digital products and services that can be accessed online. And AI in this critical role is a development that matters to any society that wants to preserve and protect social, cultural, and language priorities. And the ecosystem should be open to enable indigenous models. They must have a home on the device that consumers and citizens use every day. Initiatives like Bashini and Bharat Gen are excellent examples of sovereign AI capabilities, and they should be realized. Thanks for listening. Please visit the Qualcomm booth to look at the examples of some of these AI capabilities, and enjoy IMC. Thank you.
Alex, the fact that Indian consumers lead on 5G traffic and how businesses need to sort of think of edge AI. Very interesting fact. Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to invite on stage Mr. Udayan Mukherjee. He is the Intel Senior Fellow and Chief Architect of Intel's Network and Communication Products. Warm welcome, please.
We're talking about innovation. Innovation in network is the next. And we'll talk about virtual RAN and AI. Once we get the slides up and going. Once they get the slides, we'll get there. You know, there are a lot of talk about artificial intelligence in this. You know, in virtual RAN or network and packet core, what you are doing. So workload, the traditional RAN workload and packet core is not changing, but there are a lot of AI elements gets into it. You're talking about channel estimation, MIMO, there'll be a lot of AI stuff. And then you use the LLM model to actually do a lot of debugging and in a lot of the OSS, BSS layer for day 0, day 1 deployment of the network. Once you get the slides, hopefully we'll get it soon, we'll show you some of the layers that where the AI is getting in the network and what Intel is developing. Virtual RAN and AI. Nowadays you go anywhere, you will hear nothing but AI. Now, how do you actually get the RAN and packet code and for that network, enable for AI? What does that mean in terms of silicon, software, and systems? Let's look into it. So it's very simple, straightforward agenda. Let's look into the use case. Why would you care for AI in network if there is no value add to this? Whether it's improving performance, increasing the spectral efficiency, or doing certain things, simplifying it. So we'll talk about some of the use cases. We actually have collaborated with many operators to actually demonstrate few things. And then everything goes ultimately to silicon. What am I doing? What is Intel doing on the silicon side of it? We'll talk about it. And then software and systems. So first two slides is just framing the problem statement, okay? You're bringing the AI everywhere. Whether it's a client pieces, whether you're talking about Apple's new iPhones or AI PC, you can see a lot of this in the demonstrations. There are AI elements built into it. But now we'll shift to networking and data centers. Data centers, obviously, most of the investment in data centers right now on creating the Gen AI-based one, the ChatGPTs of the world, Mistral and others. But what we are going to focus in the networking side, the middle, where we have, what do you do in wireless networking? You do 5G, or whether you do, going forward, look into the beyond 5G, where is the AI can play a big role. First and foremost, one thing, we talk about virtual RAN. Right now, almost every RAN deployment worldwide is running on some form of Intel architecture. Whether you're talking about some public information, these are like, we started in 2019, deployed in Japan, started with LTE, not 5G. But then Verizon, Massive MIMO. Even here, operators in India, they're all doing some form of open RAN, virtual RAN, or cloud RAN. They're almost all of them running on Intel Silicon. One of the key elements of that is the AI in every compute node. So we have actually modified our silicon since last year. Now, if you talk about multi-core SoC, a 64-core platform, or even higher, every core has got an AI engine built into it. I'll show you what are those aspects of it. And then obviously you have to keep improving power and performance and efficiency. But the key is that AI in every node. So what are the use cases of network AI and RAN? I mean, if tomorrow somebody asks you, where is AI in VRAN, you should be able to say, hey, there are three aspects of it, major. One is the platform side of it. For years that we are doing, we have been spending a lot of electricity bill, the power, but these processes are very power efficient. There are a lot of sleep state and frequency modulation built into it. Every core, you can change the frequency. You can, if the workload doesn't need it, it's not active, you can bring it to sleep states and bring it out. A lot of power can be saved. Traditionally, telcos are not taking advantage of it. Our cloud customers do, but telcos are not. But these things have changed now. If you look into some of the VRAN things coming from, equipment providers like Samsung, Ericsson's of the world, they're all very serious about taking advantage of the silicon innovation in power management. And this is one use case of AI. That's the foundation layer, what we call it platform infrastructure layer. And then obviously there are other stuff like, you can do load balancing, preventive, predictive maintenance, but power management. By the way, if you go to Intel booth, there's a Reliance Jio and Intel demonstration there on AI-based power optimization and how it brings the electricity cost down. You should check it out. So that's one area of it. Another interesting area is the workload itself, the VRAN. What do? You do layer one. This is the signal processing, the channel estimation, MIMO, the traditional workload that is running in 5G or 4G for that matter. Then at layer two, you're scheduling users. Users calling, you are scheduling it. And then control. There are AI elements built, getting looked into in every piece of it. Things like, how do you do better beam management? How do you do prediction on channel? You and I am talking on phone. I mean, it's going through over the air, a lot of noise. How do you make it better? There is traditional way of doing it, but can AI do it better? So those are aspects of it. If you go to Intel booth, there is a demo with a startup company called IRA and Mavenir, who is showing channel estimation using AI elements on Xeon. We are also doing a lot of research on 6G. There is this concept of AI native RAN. So a lot of government funding is coming into this. The NIST, lot of DOD and others in US government, as well as HICSA in Europe. There's also Bharat 6G in India. They're looking into this, what is that AI native and cloud native means. So a lot of research, Intel is very much involved in this. So you're looking into every aspects of the workload. Then, excuse me, then at the top is this LLM. The lot of noise after the chat GPT is all about foundation model. So where exactly in the network you can take is about the debugging. We are working with a major operator in United States. They want a co-pilot, the Microsoft co-pilot model for operations, means debugging. For nights they have to do the radio upgrade, radio debugging. There are a lot of logs being generated. So we are training a Minstrel 7 billion parameters in Xeon with the network-specific data for them. And I'll show you what that looks like. So these are the three domains of AI in virtual RAN. Foundation layers, power management is an example. On the workload itself, beam management, channel estimation, link management, those are examples of those. And then at the top, on the debugging side of it, an LLM, a Gen AI model for telcos. Let me build this one. So this is the silicon roadmap for last 3 generations of Intel. What we had already released is Gen 6 SoC. And this is where we added something. In fact, we have added that in Sapphire Rapid itself with previous generation Gen 4. But now we are taking advantage of it even more, which is basically an AMX module, a matrix multiplied in every core. So what is that AMX, this matrix extension do? Think of that a transpose operation, matrix multiplication, matrix permutation combination. If at the underlying AI, any inferencing you do, any algorithms that you do, is a classical machine learning or for a Gen AI model, there is some form of matrix manipulation going on, matrix operations going on. And think of it that different format like int4, int8, floating point 16, bfloat, the Google talked about bfloat 16. So we support that, all of those formats in AMX, and AMX is a hardware innovation accelerator in every core. So think of that if I pick up a 64-core SoC on the next generation Xeon, every core is built into this AI acceleration. So traditionally networking and in the VRAN, I told you that every VRAN deployment right now in Xeon, this in an Intel, I'm already making my silicon future-proof. As more and more these AI applications comes into play, I should be able to run that in my systems. In fact, we are showing it with different operators and different parameters in the demo booth, as well as in the February MWC we did. Silicon is not enough. You can throw silicon into this, but then you need software. So Intel has released an VRAN AI development kit. So this talks about how to build the model. There is some example models, example code inferencing. There is also PyTorch acceleration for Intel platforms, x86. So there are a whole bunch of elements of it, the framework that is built into it that you have released. That can be downloaded selectively, and then you can build your applications on top of it. If you want to do a channel estimation based on model exchange on AI, if you want to do an LLM, you should be able to use this AI development kit. Now, this is the examples that we've been doing. Each and every one of them is public knowledge, has been demonstrated in MWs in Barcelona earlier this year, or some of them are here, or in other forums. And again, if you look into this infrastructure layers, left-hand side is essentially a vRAN, open RAN model. You know, DU software, you know, CU software, but then right side is the actual implementations that AI being used for. C state and P state are one examples of it. Fault management, predictive maintenance are all elements of those. But then more interesting is that the DU layer. If you look into this, where we are talking about channel estimation, beam management, improving link adaptation. You know, a traditional way of choosing the links based on EVs. You may be at the cell edge and you are not getting enough. So AI can come into the rescue of those. And this can run on DU itself, but there is this new model called RIC, you know, radio interface controller that Oran has introduced. You can run some of these AI aspects on top of it. So there's an example of those like energy efficiency and energy management. This is the last slide that I want to show you. How do you develop the topmost, the LLM on top of it? So Intel is building the infrastructure for a telco Gen AI LLM. So it is based on an open source model, Minstrel 7 billion. But if you right now talk to ChatGPT or anything like a foundation model, they don't know about network. They don't know what a signal processing SNR on layer 1. They don't know about BLER. So we are training, fine-tuning an existing model using 3GPP data, using ORAN data. For years, Intel has worked on link-level simulation and system-level simulation, as well as a lot of operators have provided data. We are fine-tuning it. We are actually installing it in an operator edge data center, and they are using rack pipeline to add their logs. There are lines of logs into this. So what is this going to replace? This is going to replace the script-based debugging that they have been doing for a long time. Now you can just, you know, a debugger can just query it. Hey, this is the problem. Where can in the log I need to look into this? This is the infrastructure based on open source aspects of it we are building. It's going to be trained, getting trained in fine-tuning in Xeon, and the inferencing is going to be in the Xeon, the same Gen 6 silicon that I showed you. So you can see now net what is happening. Layer 1 at the foundation layer on the power management aspects of it. In the RAN, in the layer 1 and layer 2, channel estimation, beamforming management, there are AI aspects going on. And then at the topmost layer in the LLM. And all of these things are actually being developed on Xeon platform using the accelerations that are built into the platform. You can see some of these things in the Intel booth in the Hall 3. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Udayan. I'd like to invite our next guest on stage, please, Mr. Ranganath Sadashiva. He's the Chief Technology Officer of Hewlett Packard India. A warm welcome, sir.
Can you hear me? I think that's the revolution that we are seeing or speaking about, right? The hearing revolution, the seeing revolution that's transformed this very country for the last few decades, I would say. I think every nook and corner of the country is now connected. Every nook and corner and every person is able to say, can you hear me, right? I think that's the big revolution that telecom and mobile has brought to the world. From the organization I represent, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, we have been really part of this revolution in a very big way, right? Hewlett Packard Enterprise as a company itself is an 80-year-old organization, and telecom has been one of the strong practices that we bring to the table. And very glad to tell you that across all the telecom service providers that you see in the country today, there's elements of HPE technology that comes into play. My name is Ranganath Sadashiva, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And I'm going to speak to you about artificial intelligence. No surprises, but in a very different way, right? When you're talking of technologies that have dominated the world today, I think artificial intelligence brings itself a kind of a wave, a kind of a force that's transforming every walk of life today. So having said that, it's also important to sit back and look at which are the core technologies that have influenced the industry landscape today. And from an HP standpoint, I see three centricities of technology. One is what I called as edge, right? Edge can be differentiated in a way and fashion from where you stand. If you're in a data center, an edge data center could be edge. If you're in an edge data center, a device can be an edge, right? So that's how you define edge. But for most part of whatever we see, I think, data lands at the edge. It's your ability to use that data through the IT landscape here and create excitement with data becomes very, very important. And that's where a lot of action happens on the edge front. You're seeing 60 to 70% of all transactions really emanate at the edge today, right? Edge could mean mobile devices, IoT devices, et cetera, et cetera. The entire data center focus perhaps is shifting towards the edge and kind of tilting the balance to a great extent. And next is the aspect of hybrid nature of the world today. What is hybrid nature of the world? Your ability to spread your data across wherever your applications and data reside, right? Your applications could reside on a mobile phone, your data could reside on your mobile phone. Your ability to get your IT landscape across all of these facets and live and ensure that the organization benefits out of it is where hybrid comes into play, right? And today there have been various debates, experimentations that have happened, right? People who were moving into a data center, moved out to the cloud, and all those experimentations have all happened. But it's fair to say that the world has become completely hybrid today. And many of the workloads that we see today are hybrid by nature. They reside in data centers, they reside on the cloud, they reside on laptops or PCs, whatever it is, right? That's what it is. And the most interesting aspect that's now developed or emerged is artificial intelligence. It's got a profound influence in the way we live and work, right? Anybody who doesn't use AI at all today here, right? How do you go home? When you're going home, despite being in Delhi for this many years, you will not say, I'll come in half an hour by the virtue of your experience. You're going to look into Google Maps or things like that, and driven by an AI algorithm there, right? So every aspect of what you do, the way you buy on a website, the way you travel, as I said, everything is dominated by this world called artificial intelligence. So to look at artificial intelligence in a way and fashion that I want to present to you is the key crux of what I want to tell you. But at the backdrop of all of this, there is a lot of emphasis on having data. The right kind of data drives the right kind of intent, the right kind of insights. If you don't have the right kind of data, if you don't know that you have to come to Surya Hall and listen to me, then you'll be somewhere else, right? You need to have the right kind of data points there. The other aspect that's very, very important is sustainability, is your ability to use resources in the gambit of a sustainable framework. Sustainability is now core in design. If you're wanting to buy anything today, you will have to look at sustainability. How do you buy a phone today? You look at the SARS value of it, right? Whether it's good for health or bad for health. Likewise, anything that you want in an IT world today, you would have to have sustainability as the core aspect there, right? And security follows through. As long as your length and breadth and IT canvas really goes up, security has to be there. We also, you see something called as Green Lake, right? That's our ability to bring the cloud to your doorsteps, right? We all know about cloud and how cloud has evolved. But if you were to look at cloud, for us, it is an experience. The way you go and spin up a VM, the way you go and spin up a container is an experience. Can I deliver the very same experience for you in an on-prem kind of a setup? That's what we do, right? And that's Green Lake for you. And these centricities actually mean that the focus on AI from every technology company is growing. But the difference that we want to table today is our ability to look at AI from a 360-degree viewpoint, right? It is our ability to look at AI just not as a GPU, CPU conversation, just not a model conversation. It is absolutely a set of technologies that come together. And to me, AI is one such technology that actually assimilates a lot of technologies and utilizes them. You need to have the right kind of data. You need to have the right kind of compute. You need to have the right kind of model. You need to have the right kind of services. So it is one great assimilator of all technologies, driving a very large outcome like artificial intelligence, right? So the 360-degree viewpoint is what we want to bring to the table, which means I handle an AI use case or an AI requirement as a life cycle, right? So some of the tenets is mentioned here when you look at, firstly, it could be the way you choose a model, the way you run a use case. Is it something righteous for you to run a use case? So services gets involved there. Then there is a data platform, right? Today there is a lot of sources of data. If you look at AI models, if you take a ChatGPT or OpenAI or anything like that, right? Where is the data coming from? ChatGPT has 60% of the data coming in from Wikipedia. And that could be about 10 or 15 years old. Say if you're talking of an Indian language, do you think our Indian language is just 15 years old? There's so much of text, there's so much of content that's there. So getting all the data into play becomes very important. And you need to have a plane or technology that talks to all data together and puts them in a platter so that you can work on an AI models there. Then there is data preparation, data pipelining, right? You have a larger gambit of things that one needs to look at. So all of this is the total holistic approach that we want to bring to the table, and that's what we are propagating to all of our customers. And especially in the context of India, right, there has been a serious amount of experimentation that has happened. And now they're getting into real deployments and deployments at scale, right? It's just not good enough to have a single use case which says, this is X, this is Y from a facial recognition perspective. But your ability to say, okay, this person is a person who's able to actually, he's a key customer for us. He's got multiple cars if it's a car dealer or something like that, right? So that's how you need to look at it. And from an HPE standpoint, we want to ensure that it is looked as an entire 360-degree portfolio and comprising of all the elements that I said. Also very important in this context is to look at it from a lens where you're responsible with your AI models, right? Most of the time, you've seen that as good as the tool is, there are other flip sides of the tool as well. So that way, for us, if you want to get involved in any kind of an AI project, we look at this reference where you're looking at the privacy of and security of it, the human focused of it, the inclusive robustness and responsibleness, which are the elements through which each of the models run through, right? So this is very foundational for us when you're looking at any kind of AI implementation, and it needs to fall into this kind of a gambit. So what do we see as pillars for any kind of AI implementation today? Like I said, there is a life cycle that's happening. People have really understood AI. There were people who built a lot of stacks earlier and AI models. Then there were a lot of people who started experimenting that with various other models, right? But today they are getting into a phase where they want to implement AI in a fashion where they are secure, sovereign, you want to use their data for that. How do you do that? The 7 tenets that we see are mentioned here, right? One is AI optimized infrastructure. AI workload itself is of a very different nature. It is more, one task and multiple things doing together, right? There's parallelization of workloads that we need to see. And that comes through an optimized hardware set, right? Our ability to provide the best-in-class optimized infrastructure platforms for you is what we bring to the table. And this is various technologies incorporated, right? Because AI is just not a defined workload or a defined platform. Depending on your use cases, you can have various infrastructure platforms. The second attribute is your ability to look at softwares today, because they define how a model really gets generated and how it yields the results, right? For that, there is softwares which orchestrate the entire stack. There are softwares that do a pipelining for data. There are softwares for looking at the model and applying the models onto the data that you have. So that entire stack is what we bring to the table. Some IP from HP and some IP from others that are there in the market space as well. And then we get into this architecture when I said it is a hybrid architecture, right? When you're looking at a large volume data and wanting to look at AI modeling on that and then doing inferencing in the cloud or inferencing at the edge, you need to have an edge-to-cloud platform. And that's what we bring to the table, right? With GreenLake, it becomes one single platform that manages your resources at the edge, at the core, and on the cloud. Right? You can have a single view of all of that. That's the ability that we bring to the table. Flexible AI consumption is our ability to give you that cloud experience. Not many people would want to start with a big bang approach. And investments in AI is expensive today. A GPU, for instance, is definitely expensive, as everyone knows. So how do you get a model that enables you to start small and scale and have that cloud experience is what we bring to the table. And expertise across the core. Like I said, we have had a lot of expertise across the globe, working with a lot of AI use cases, vendors, creators, inference mongers, all of them together. So how do I bring that expertise to you so that it becomes very relevant to you? That's something that we bring to the table. There's a lot of industry-specific AI also that's coming into play, whether it is telecom, like our speakers with whom we work, Intel, a lot. They spoke about how would they bring it to telecom, right? And there are several use cases that's happening from a healthcare perspective, from a manufacturing perspective. How do you put all of those resourcing together to ensure it's done? And then it's about getting all of the resources together, through partnerships, whether you're working with vendors like Intel, or whether you're working with model creators, whether you're working with software vendors. How do you put all of that together? What does this ensure? This ensures a clear message that here is a vendor who can act as a trusted advisor and get all of this together to you, right? So that you are able to do one thing very, very clearly. Be successful in your AI journey and also accelerate your AI journey. Very important to do that, right? Success and acceleration are the pitfalls of an AI journey today. And if you are able to ensure that through this approach, we are able to deliver that, that becomes a very nice thing. So we can meet you at any destination, wherever you are, whether you're creating a data platform, whether you're customizing your AI, wherever your journey is, right? HP can actually work with you alongside that. It's not that you have to start greenfield or brownfield or anything like that. Wherever you are, we have the expertise and capabilities of doing it in the past and ability to really work with you that we bring to the table. And having said that, the experience around AI for us has been for a few decades, right? If anybody remember high-performance computing is computing at large. We are talking of exascale capabilities. Exascale is 10 to the power of 18 transactions per second, right? Before you do that, that many transactions can be done. So we have that kind of expertise, and large organizations have been using that for making a lot of predictive AI forecasting, and weather forecasting is a great example. And we have been part of that. And if you were to look at this as a simple example in terms of how we have brought all of that together, Aurora, 3 out of the top 10 performing supercomputers in the world is what we do. And I said sustainable by design, right? 6 of the 10 more efficient supercomputers are delivered by HP. So this is the expertise, this is the experience that we bring to the table. And this is what I think should benefit when we are actually in a journey of really discovering the power of AI in your own organizations, right? So I'll leave you with this, saying that telecom for us is something that we have worked together for about 30 years in various segments, whether it is bringing in efficiencies into the overall domain, whether you're doing automation, any kind of solutions around that, or if you're looking at building new products and agility into your products, or enhancing connectivity through 5G or anything like that. There is a spectrum of solutions that we cater to, and that's the expertise that we have delivered to the country in the last 20, 25 years. Whichever be the telecom service provider you see there, or an OEM vendor there, you will find us really playing a very, very important role. So as I said, can you hear us now with what we have done? Yes, no, maybe. Thank you very much.
Interesting, right? We started with that single use case of can you hear me, and we're now building out sort of a multi-layer 360-degree use cases with, layering it with AI. Thank you so much, Mr. Ranganath. I'd like to now invite on stage Mr. Hemant Chajaria. He leads the consulting business for KPMG, covering management risk as well as tech consulting across 15 sectors. Warm welcome to you, sir. Put your hands.
Heard my colleague talking about that AI is all pervasive now. I think technology, I would go a bit beyond that to say technology is all pervasive. Since we wake up in the morning, we wake up with a mobile. The first glance is at our mobile, checking for our messages, checking for what we need to do during the day. Mobile travels with us throughout the day. And whether we know or not, we are engaging in different forms of technology. And I think Gen AI is the most transformative technology that we have come across, but there are other forms of technology. There is huge impact being made today with pure digitization. And if you combine what we have been able to do with digital enablement, creating efficiencies with a digital, and what we are envisioning with Gen AI, I think it's a tremendous combination that we see is going to have an impact on our life over the next decade, what we are calling the techade. Per se has a central role to play because of the way mobile is positioned. Whatever you do, whichever industry you might be in, I think there is a role for mobile. And I think that's for us to accept, to say, ultimately, this is one device that is become core to whichever industry, whatever you may want to do, either in a B2B or in a B2C setup. And I think once you accept that, you understand that what revolution that we are going through. I think mobile is going to stay, telcos are going to remain at the center of this. While there are many aspects of the revolution in making, I think we see much higher productivity. We see much higher fragmentation for consumers as a whole. But one big aspect that I see in the current phase is that there is more value to be driven through human augmented AI versus self-driven AI. So there is a time for self-driven AI. There are still, sort of self-managed or self-driven AI systems that can do. But when we look at the use cases that are creating value for the clients, there is a serious impact coming from wherever there is a human augmentation to whatever AI can do. And it could come in the form of removing the biases that get introduced in the AI systems. It could come in the form of finding or prioritizing the most impactful AI, but the human augmentation piece doesn't go away easy. So if you look at the Gen AI phases, I think we are at an inflection stage, and that happens with any technology. There were some green shoots. There were some question marks around whether the investments are paying off. And now we see there are multiple use cases at scale across industries. There are use cases around personalization, around productivity that are already being deployed, but there are futuristic thoughts around what we can do with the workforce, the quantum AI, and how we can continue to make strides on connectivity, which will continue to impact the way we look at the overall Gen AI revolution. Across sectors, if you look at it, you have education, where personalized education to large masses can be possible through AI. Imagine, when you have to generate a personalized curriculum for millions of people, millions of students. You can do it using Gen AI, and there are some experiments in making that show it is very highly impactful. On healthcare, diagnosis, radiology is one aspect of it that has already been significantly, it is accepted that over the next few years, I think AI will do a much better job and can probably replace humans. Financial services, call centers, overall marketing and sales, there are at scale use cases being deployed. Law enforcement, there is a whole lot of case analysis, precedent analysis that we see. Defense, there are numerous use cases coming through it. I think a few days back, I was reading about US deployed this particular AI model called Raven Sentry in Afghanistan. And initially, when they deployed it to figure out where Taliban might attack next, which town at what time, they did not believe, because there were human analysts involved, they did not believe that they will be able to get us even 50% accuracy. Eventually, they were surprised. They got over 70% accuracy, much better than humans. And so there was a reverse digging into what it is correlating with. And you'll be surprised what it was being correlated with. They actually figured out that AI is able to figure out a correlation between the sensory light during the day that increases as the number of vehicles in one place kind of come together. So the light reflected in the sky that the satellite is able to catch is is increased. The AI is able to figure out the carbon dioxide concentration in certain places as a lot of humans come together to attack, and then it's able to correlate that back with the frequency of attacks with the rise of temperature. So there's a clear correlation with higher temperature. And when they brought this all together, it was actually able to do it with 70% plus accuracy. And if you put a human on top of it, it was 90% accuracy. That they were able to figure out that there's going to be a Taliban attack at within this week in this location. And lo and behold, they were figuring out that through that augmented process, they were quite accurate. And that was 4 years back, by the way, 2020. So you can imagine what you can do. Today, AI is being used by police forces in many places to figure out where to send patrols at night. Because there are models to assess that given the weather, the timing, and multiple other factors, you could actually have more mugging attacks in this particular area. So that's the level of just to give you an example. And then you have for news and media, you have, content personalization. I think telecom per se, across sectors, like I said, telecom per se has a huge role to play. TMT overall as an industry has a huge role to play. And that's the centrality of mobile. We see, over time, we see telcos transforming actually into what we call techcos, because they are expanding beyond the traditional telco use case. There is a lot of content generation, content dissemination. There is a lot of across. Well, if I go back across each of the industries that telcos have to play, and we see 3 sort of models of techcos emerging globally. The one is techcos that do telcos or techcos that do their core job very well. So they are very good at doing the voice and data services very well, and they are bringing a lot of AI-related, digital-related efficiencies within their core function. Then we see ecosystem builders that are connecting with, let's say, media content, that are connecting with education, that are connecting with financial services. They're trying to figure out all the services that a consumer would need, and going beyond their core function of voice and data to say, here is how a consumer interacts with a mobile, and I want to play a part in each of those different areas. And so that's the ecosystem builder. And then we have these innovations, and I can give examples of India, the per second pricing that India was able to innovate with, the paying of infrastructure, based on airline-based, usage-based, payment of infrastructure in India, that India sort of innovated and the world adopted. So there are a number of innovations that certain companies keep making in specific areas to bring efficiencies. I think somewhere it has to be a combination of 2 and 3 is where the leading telcos are sort of emerging. The other thing we have noticed is when it comes to AI, the leaders are not 1 step ahead, but 4 or 5 steps ahead of the laggards. So some of the leading companies that we have seen, they are actually spending 4 times as much, investing in use cases almost 4 times as much, and able to get that impact, which is substantially more. So that could probably create a chasm between the leaders and laggards of AI adoption. As KPMG, when we looked at the AI-driven capabilities that are transforming the telco value chain, there are 4 specific areas. There is growth and monetization, where there are specific use capabilities and use cases around growth and monetization that we see telcos deploying. There is pure tech and transformation, where around tech stack, what they are doing across different parts of tech stack that they are able to use. There is people and process that we believe are very important. In fact, I would say 70% of what you are able to deploy ultimately comes down to people and process. If you have talent that doesn't understand Gen AI, and even if you have deployed Gen AI, they do not know how to get value out of it, then that itself is the largest impediment in getting impact realized within your organization. And finally is the whole ESG piece, which the telcos will have to adapt over time. We had this global survey, and when we surveyed the industry, we hear 3 specific areas with the largest impact: customer experience, fraud and revenue generating areas around marketing and sales. But it's not just what what we surveyed. We also have, given the work that we have done, and when we have looked at what different telcos have implemented across the globe, these specific areas that have come across are smart network optimization from a cost saving perspective, product and pricing, and personalization with personalization of engagement with customers as areas where there are clear revenue impacts, and that overall fraud detection, reducing the cost of fraud for the organization. And these are areas, if you look to your right, where revenue impact can be clearly identified, and there is value being realized. So, and that's what I meant when I said AI is at an inflection stage, because there are certain use cases now being deployed at scale where there is a significant impact to the revenue that you can isolate and you can ascribe to the attribute to the AI piece. So globally, we see TMT innovating and deploying AI use cases, like I talked about, customer service, network, marketing, and sales. Those are three specific areas. There are many use cases that we have listed out here. But broadly, if you look at it, they are also, we see telco companies being innovative around looking at, for example, the chatbots are not being used just for customers, but they're also being used to train their workforce. Like I said, if you don't have the talent that understands how to use Gen AI in the context, you have a serious impediment to your realization of value. So I'd close by leaving some food for thought. I think one of the biggest areas, and I think my colleague mentioned before this, is on deployment of AI is data. And there's this whole war of data that's going between countries on who's going to have better and more data. And I read somewhere that we are running out of internet data in a year or two, on which you have ChatGPT type of model, LLMs built. So one view is, can we have sector specific data? Can we come together in a certain mast or in a certain way where you have data that is sanitized or managed, but for a sector, players come together and they are able to create use case specific LLM. So there could be an LLM, for example, that is very marketing and sales driven or network optimization focused. And industry has come together in past on for example, network infrastructure related stuff. So there is no reason why this cannot be created. There is the second point around the whole data strategy for each of the and governance that we need to create, because until you have 80% of the job is cleaning up the data, making the data is usable for building the AI model, and until you do that, whatever models you build are not going to be successful. So, and then there is I've already talked about the AI ready talent, because there is until you need to train your talent, you need to get the right people who can deploy AI within your organization, and that for a futuristic organization, I think that is the most critical piece that every organization will need to look at. And finally is the responsible AI piece, to say there are ethical challenges to AI. I will leave with a, when it comes to responsible AI, I will leave with a, you can go back and listen to it, but Yuval Noah Harari, he recently had an interview where he talked about, AI, in his view, and he's a very interesting historian, and he has a good perspective about how human civilization works, but he said AI has actually cracked the operating system of human civilization, which is language. And according to him, and it's not my words, his words, even money is language, is telling stories. If you can tell good stories, you can always make money. So his perspective is, if AI comes in and they can create a language, they can actually, or basis of a civilization or culture, and our entire system is language. So there are questions around, like, how do we create ethical, more responsible AI? I think that is something for us to be mindful of. Thank you.
I think it's very interesting to note, we've spoken a lot about AI, but when you bring in that human level augmentation, how can you improve that accuracy, efficiency? Hemant talked about a use case where we moved from 70% to 90% by adding that human element to it. Thank you so much, Hemant. I'd like to invite our next guest on stage, please, Mr. Nicola Benvenuti. He is the Vice President, Product Line Management for Ciena. Warm welcome, please.
Everybody hear me? That's a yes. I can hear it up here. As mentioned, I'm Nicola Benvenuti. I'm VP of Product Line Management at Ciena. I want to spend the next 15 minutes talking to you about AI, 5G, and multi-layer convergence in the network. I'm sure everybody has seen this chart, and it highlights the issues with building a network, 5G network, transport network, routed network, whatever. Monetization is the big problem. But let's take a step back. Let's look at the advantages of that network first. 5G network creates connectivity. It allows me, being remote today, to communicate with my family back home, to conduct my business as I would do if I was in the office. That's a very, very powerful tool. And so the advantages of a 5G network are too numerous to count. The issues around profitability. How do we make that network more profitable? And here today, we heard some of the speeches this morning about introducing 6G. Right? Fundamentally, we need to monetize the network before we evolve it to the next generation. So what are some of the issues we struggle with? And I'm sure you guys know this as well as me. You struggle with intense capital to build that network, to buy the spectrum, and to deploy those assets. You have intense competition from your competitors, and you have low ARPUs that, as we know in India, are slowly rising, but fundamentally it creates an economic problem for you. So what do we do about it, and how do we solve that problem? How do we monetize this network? So if we can borrow a similar concept in the network today of AI, if we bring AI into this conversation, can we change the economics of a network? And can we make it much more profitable for the people that are building those networks, you guys? Now, there's been some technology changes that I've seen in my lifetime. Let's start first with the internet. Before the internet, if I wanted to run a business, it was local, right? My sales team was local, my support, my manufacturing team was all local. Bar a few multinational companies who had the resources to offshore some of their business, everything was local. But with the advent of the internet and virtual marketplaces, I could now make myself a global entity, and I could sell outside of my jurisdiction. I can deal with suppliers outside my jurisdiction. These are things that enhanced the model. Introduce 5G as the next big transformative service. I no longer have to be in the office to do my work. I could be on the road, and I could have that same level of connectivity to service my customers in a way that I could only service them back home. AI is the third innovation, but AI trumps the first two innovations. The first two innovations were about connectivity, connecting you to your customers. The next innovation is about way more than that. It's about driving incremental services to your customers, streamlining your operational model, driving down the cost of building the network, and has a multiplier effect on top of the economics of building networks. AI could be fundamentally the turning point to make networks extremely profitable as we move forward. And I'll explain why in a second. So first aspect of AI is the AI ops portion. I know the gentleman before me showed you some examples of AI, but let's think about AI in the context of network operations. There are some complex tasks that we do on a day-to-day basis that a human has to do to drive network efficiencies. And so those could be now done by AI, trying to troubleshoot, trying to go through logs to find out why something is broken. That could all be done by AI. Really reduces the cost of support in the network, removes that complex knowledge away from your vendor and away from your staff, and puts it into an AI engine that could fundamentally solve that problem in seconds instead of months, as we deal with today. The second aspect of it is incremental revenue generation. So how do we monetize AI? We target services to our customers in the way they want to buy those services. Today, to launch those services into your customers, you have to streamline your entire operations to do that. That's time consuming and it gets extremely complicated for people to administer. But AI doesn't have that problem. It's infinite compute, infinite people with the cost of just software. The second aspect is I can now upsell. I have a better view of what my customers could buy from me. So I can sell them the bare minimum, and then I can upsell value add on top of it. And so fundamentally, it personalizes a service back to an end customer, driving a much better economic model than the tiered model we have today. Last but not least, it's going to have a dramatic effect on the network. We're talking about big flows moving around the network to create those LLM languages, models that you saw in the previous presentation. Those are intensive to compute, intensive to build. And then to operationalize those with edge computing, as an example, with inference into AI is another huge advantage. But those are fundamentally going to change the way the network operates. You're not going to be building the same network you're building today. You're going to have a much more flexible network that software can now automate on top. And if you do that right, you can really differentiate yourself from your competitors, drive satisfaction and value into your customers, and lock in those customers for longer periods of time, and eventually upsell them into more services. But AI comes with its own problems. First and foremost, it requires a ton of compute. Now, not every carrier is going to undertake their initiative to build an AI cluster. You can buy those services from a partner. So fundamentally, somebody is going to learn those AI capabilities, and it's going to make them telco specific. Now, an example of how intense that is, we're seeing a 4 times increase in compute year over year to drive those larger language models. By 2030, the expectation is that it could be up to 5,000 times more compute than we're seeing now. Now, that's a big number. It doesn't even have to get that high. What it's going to produce is a side problem around power. How do I get the power to drive these AI learning engines and an AI-enhanced network? And that's going to drive some incremental changes to the network that we're going to talk about next. So first one is around AI learning. If you're constrained by power, you're going to have to spread out your AI learning over a larger area. Today, a lot of the data that gets transferred inside of AI learning is between machines in a data center. If I have to spread out that data center because of power, then I'm going to have to provide capacity behind it. A great opportunity for service providers, especially here in India. Next is the inference model. If I need better performance on my inference model, I'm going to want that model much closer to the end user. So if it's real-time analytics that they want and real-time digestion of data and responses, they're going to want that to be as close to them as possible, reducing the latency. And that's another opportunity to create these value-added services. Last is mass transport of data. If I look at it today, we are already seeing the impacts of this. From a cloud store into the AI engines, we're seeing multi-terabits of traffic being used to train those languages. And that data is being pulled from all over the globe, causing an amplifying effect on capacity. The next piece, though, is getting that data into the data store. That's coming from enterprises. Vast majority of enterprises do not have their data in the cloud yet. So there's going to be another big transfer of data and a continuous transfer of data from an enterprise into the data store. The last piece, as we talked about before, is the inference piece. Enterprise sending their data into an inference engine to get results. Today, those inference engines are text-based, but you could see them quickly becoming video-based or presentation-based. And fundamentally, that's going to change the capacity inside the network. Today, it's already having an impact on the network. The amount of capacity being purchased for data center interconnect, even in India, is quite large, never mind the rest of the world. And it's being sold in a concept called MOFN, Managed Optical Fiber Network. That is a network that creates connectivity between data centers, specifically by a service provider, but given to a hyperscaler to interconnect their data centers. So think of it as a private network. It doesn't run like this everywhere in the world, but in India, it absolutely runs like this. And so what are the qualifications and stipulations of that network? It has to be an optical-based network that's driving the highest capacity and the lowest cost structure. And it uses performance optics at 1.6 terabits soon, as well as 800 gig pluggables when they become available. Whatever the right price point is, whatever the right capacity is, those networks will be a big part of the future going forward. Let's look at AI ops for a second. So we talked about the ability to reduce the cost by using AI in the network and making your network much more efficient. Today, we provide a lot of tools that are application-specific based, and they're typically program tools that gather data from the network and give you some sort of results. But those tools don't talk to each other, and they have long development cycles. AI could easily replace those tools if you train it with telco knowledge. And now, all of a sudden, those tools can produce the same results, but at a much faster clip and across multiple vendors. The other thing is those tools will create their own data, which other tools can now use. And so the network data is not just the raw data, but now also the interpreted data by these tools, and the higher order tools can now make use of this. So AI can really help you streamline that part of your organization. Next comes into planning and service assurance. I know there's a lot of companies out there that have told you they can do service assurance. It's a really intricate process, but AI could do that at a much faster clip and can deal with change at a much faster clip. And so we could see those services now moving in to service assurance and forecasting and network modeling that allows us to build the best and most optimal network. The last piece is what I'm going to call more the soft touch, to do the workflows, to do the predictive analysis, to do the gut feel checks, to do multi-layer stitching. Those things that we have to do as people today, AI could easily take over. You could imagine what kind of impact that could have on your cost structure when all the people that we're using today to produce some of these things can now be freed up for other aspects of your business, number one. Number two, the complexity of some of these tasks take a lot of time. I had a customer ask me, how do I know my uptime on a circuit, right? That's an activity that could take a while for us to go and collect that data and prove to them. AI could do it in seconds and can report it every single time with 100% accuracy. So fundamentally, it starts to personalize the service for the end customer. Now let's talk about the monetization piece of this. I think of it as a tree, okay? And there's 4 branches in this tree. The first branch, we kind of talked about a little, but we're going to expand on it more. That's the optimized piece. How do I take the network infrastructure I have today and maximize it to produce the most and best amount of services and maximize my profit? That's question number 1. A lot of us spend a lot of time trying to do that, and in the end, we always fail, and we either produce a network that's overbuilt or underbuilt. But AI could really help us along that equation and can identify changes faster than we can. And therefore, we can always be a little bit ahead of the curve. The second part is evolve your service offering. Customers want what they want. They don't like the packages that we give them. They want to pay for just what they value. That's how you get the most value out of your customers. So if they're only willing to pay for 3 things, only offer them 3 things. The issue is inside our services organizations and inside our deployment teams, that variability causes a lot of grief because you have a small number of people that have to operationalize all that. But if I had AI to operationalize all that, I could have many, many different types of services across the network, and I can let the network deal with that. And I could leave that personalization to every customer. The value here is I can use that data then to evolve and diversify and determine what next that customer may need. What kind of an incremental service would they want? So if they were just buying capacity at one point in time, would they need a cloud interconnect now? Would they need a private infrastructure? These are things that I could upsell once they have that service offering, and I would use AI to predict where they might want to go and how to price it for them. So it comes into a number of aspects. The last piece is you may not have all those capabilities as a service provider, but you can partner to provide those capabilities with some of the players out on the market that produce those types of capabilities. But all this can only be done if your base layer, the root layer, is a flexible, agile, instrumented, and automated network. You have to get there because to make these changes, you need the software to be able to instantiate that on top of the hardware. In a lot of cases, we're not picking the hardware that gives us the most flexibility, that gives us the latest and greatest capabilities, the most instrumented, because we're worried about cost. The reality is we're worried about cost because we're undervaluing our services. If we could sell only what the customer wanted and upsell them to something else, we can maximize the dollar of revenue we get. We can make it really sticky with this customer, and then we can continue to grow that customer into a bigger base as their business grows. So fundamentally, extreme personalization, enhanced value-add services, and giving them a connectivity service that evolves with their needs when they need it. So just a quick recap of what we talked about here, and I know it was quick, but we only really had 15 minutes. AI is a highly instrumented network infrastructure, right? It'll help you reduce the CapEx costs on the front end, and it'll help you reduce the OpEx cost, and it'll maximize the amount of revenue you can get on specific customers looking for specific services. The next piece is to enable that, you need a programmable network. You need it to be modular, you need it to be scalable, you need it to be instrumented, and you need it to be adaptable to new service types. That creates the fundamental base. Last piece is the multi-layer convergence allows us to reduce our CapEx cost to drive that infrastructure as efficiently as possible. At Ciena, we call this the adaptive network. It's a vision we've had for about 5 years now. It's software instrumented deployment models that have a circular system to them, where we can take analytics back from the data or from the network, instrumentation, and then be able to overlay new services on top and deploy those at faster speeds. That is all built on a base of highly effective, highly automated, highly integrated devices on the network elements themselves. One pitch is Ciena does this today at all layers, whether it's software IP layer, whether it's the optical layer, whether it's the hardware layer underneath, and then ultimately with our management solutions on top and applied AI on top of that, we can drive that network value. Thank you, everybody.
With that, we'll close our session today. We've taken you through this journey of where we started 50 years ago with just one SIM card as a use case to the point where we've brought in AI, generative AI, and how do you sort of leverage that with the telco. Thank you, everybody, for your time here. Have a good day. Bye.